We're moving on to another type of adjective pronoun, which we've learned several of these at this point. Pas pantapan is in many ways an adjective. It can also be a pronoun. All of our adjectives, good, tall, those can be adjectives functioning to attribute adjectival characteristics to another noun, or they can function substantively, where they function as a noun, like the good thing or the good ones, the good man. So we've already encountered this kind of reality. We're just doing it with a different kind of word. In fact, we have a special name for these words. They're called demonstratives. The easiest way I can explain what a demonstrative is think about something you point at. That thing, this one. For example, it would be this book. That's a near demonstrative. This means it's in proximity. This book. If I had two of them, it'd be these books. But you can't see this right now, but I'm looking at my bookcase. They're on the other side of the room, and there's many of them. So I could point and go, well, it's that book, or it's those books, the plural. The difference is proximity. This and these are the singular and the plural of the near demonstrative. But then it could also be that or those, the singular and plural of the far demonstrative. So it's the same concept. We've got two different words, and because they're adjectival, they can be an adjective, you can use the word to say this book, and that's attributing something to a specific book. It's the near one to you. It has to be able to be conjugated or inflected in all of the cases and all of the genders. Pretty standard stuff at this point. You've seen us do that with all. You've seen us do that with adjectives. You've seen us do that with articles, all of which have this same kind of adjectival sense to them. So this is just adding the demonstratives. And for me, demonstratives are things I can point at. This book, these books, that book, those books. But also we can use them substantively. We can use them as a pronoun. It could just be the word that we're going to give you here in a minute for this. And if there's nothing that it's modifying like an adjective, then it would be this one or this man, this woman, this thing. We've done that as well with several different words along the way. So really nothing new by means of grammar here. Really nothing new in virtue or by virtue of the endings. They're the standard endings. It's just two new words that we're going to inflect in a full noun chart. These follow the 2-1-2 pattern of declensions. That's helpful. I think those are easier declensions for us to learn. So let's learn them. I'm going to put the forms up, and then we'll talk a little bit more about their usage. But even at this point, we've already covered much of their usage. So let's go ahead and do the near demonstrative. So we're going to put that on the board here, and begins with who. Now, I want to clarify this too. I don't require that you put all of the accent marks when you're writing out answers to questions on your paperwork, on your quizzes, your tests, things like that. But the rough breathing mark is not, and the smooth breathing mark are not just accent marks. They're much more than that. They will change the word completely. In fact, you're going to see that with this. The rough breathing mark that shows up in the demonstratives is very important. So make sure you use it, especially the rough breathing mark. Okay. Hutas. And then we change a little bit and we go to a tau instead of the rough breathing mark. To toe, to ton, right? And then in the plural, we go back to the rough breathing mark, who, toy, then we go back to the tau, to tone, to tois, tu, tus. All right, now we go to the feminine. This is where that rough breathing mark is incredibly important. Haute looks a lot like aute, the third person personal pronoun, feminine. The rough breathing mark is the whole difference. So here's a clue though. If you see a rough breathing mark over it, you know it's going to be the demonstrative. Okay, then we change to tau, tace, tau, te, tau, tain. Then we go back to the form up here. How, tie. Then again, this is just continual. This genitive plural is the same all the way across. So we change it from the tau or the ow stem to the tau again. So tau tone or two tone, excuse me. Then we go back. Tau tais, tau tas. All right. Now remember, we know some things. Now one funny thing happens with the neuter. Instead of us putting the new on the end, there's no new on the end. This is more like the article, right? The article doesn't have that. It's ta. It's kind of similar to that as opposed to a normal noun or adjective. To ta. And then these are always the same, remember? So to, this is the same. To, toy. Always put the subscript iota. That's kind of like a rough breathing mark too, in the sense that, only in the sense that it's really important. You can't ignore it. It has to be there or it's wrong. Okay? And then this one, the nominative and accusative are always the same. To, ta. Now we come down here to ta, always with the alpha there. Now these are the same. To, tone, to, tois. And then that's going to be the same. To, ta. There you go. Now, let's kind of go through it and think about it. Let's say we're using the word word, the noun word, and this is modifying the word word. Okay, so this would be this word, of this word, to this word, this word. These words, of these words, to these words, these words. Okay? If we use scripture, graphe, it would be this scripture, of this scripture, to this scripture, this scripture. These scriptures, to of these scriptures, to these scriptures, these scriptures. If we come over here, let's use the word erga, which we use often. This work, of this work, to this work, this work. These works, of these works, to these works, these works. Okay, so that's how it would function as an adjective, ascribing or attributing some characteristic or delineating, in this case, it's this one or these ones. Now, if it's being used substantively, as its own thing, standing on its own, then you would supply man, woman, thing, or it. You could also use people. Okay, so it'd be like this man, this woman, this thing. These men, these women, these things. I mean, pretty standard, right? I mean, that shouldn't come as a shock to you. The forms follow the normal declensions. The only thing that's unusual is we don't put the new on the nominative and accusative singular in the neuter. It just stays with the omicron ending. Okay? But other than that, pretty standard chart. On this one, we change from hutas to hautas or haute. And if it ends in an alpha or an eta, you're going to change the beginning of the stem. It's just the way it is. But again, remember, these are to recognize them. Pretty standard. All right. So that's the near demonstrative, this and these. Now let's take a moment and we'll look at the far demonstrative. This one is, I think the endings are very simple. All right, so let's go ahead and put these up here. A K, oops, a K, nas, a K, nu, a K, no, a, I keep wanting to put an alpha there. I don't know why I'm doing that. A K, non, a K, noi, a K, known, a K, noise, a K, news. All right, now we come over here and it's a K, I'm doing it again, a K, nay, a K, nace, a K, nay, a K, nain, a K, nigh, a K, known, a K, nice, a K, nas. All right, now in the neuter, we get to replicate things. All right, so this one is, oops, a K, na. Same as in hautas, or hutas, excuse me. Same as in hutas, we don't put a nu on the end here. But now we know these are the same. A, K. I'm having lots of problems today. A, K, nu. A, K, no. And then we replicate the nominative. A, K, na. Come down here. A, K, na. A, K, known. A, K, noise. And then A, K, na. All right, there's the full chart. Very standard, very typical type of first and second declensions. And this would be that, those. That's the difference. Again, we could go through the words like that word, of that word, to that word, that, those words, to those words. We can do that for all of them. It's the same pattern as we saw with the near demonstrative as with the far demonstrative. But if it's also a substantival, it'd be that man, that woman, that thing, or those men. Okay? So very much similar in that. Now, the last couple things I want to say to you. If it is a pronoun and it's standing alone as a substantive here, the function is determined, the function determines its case. But the gender and number are determined by the antecedent. So the antecedent noun that it's replacing, gender and number, will be reflected how you inflect it. But then the case will be determined how it's functioning in the sentence. You are going to have to add the words, man, thing, it, whatever. When it's an adjective, usually adjectives that are working adjectively, ascribing a description to something, they are usually in the attributive position, which means if there's an article, it's going to be in front of, there's going to be an article in front of the adjective. In this case, with these words, I'm using demonstratives, in these cases, with these kinds of words, it's in the predicate position. So it won't have the article in front of it, but it's still functioning like this book, this car, this room, that teacher. So just know, unlike regular adjectives that will be articular when they're attributive, the demonstratives are not, they're anarthrous. They're not articular. They don't have it. They're in the predicate position, but they are still functioning as an attributive. So you would say this class, this book, these students. Okay? Well, that's the whole thing about the demonstratives. Near and far, normal inflection, pretty standard to what you've already learned.